You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa and
And I'm Chris Brown.
and we're going to get right into it. Chris, what is your hot take?
I think people are really thirsty for honesty these days.
I am so excited to talk about this because I have a growing frustration, and maybe it's always been there, but I'm really starting to pay attention to it with people who are just being performative, or they're just trying to tell a story or create a narrative or make themselves appear to be better, bigger, stronger, smarter than they are. And I'm really over it as well. So, tell us more. Why do you think that people are thirsty for honesty? And since we're in violent agreement, what can we do about it?
I think we can be honest. I've gotten into this like consultative sales model thing that I didn't even know was called that until I'd been doing it for a while. And it's essentially just, listening to people, understanding their needs, and then trying to figure out if the solutions that I have fit with their problem. And if not, tell them that it doesn't, hopefully have another avenue for them. But we're in this world, just like you said, of there's so much just all this influencer thing that's going on everywhere and everybody's faking it. You can go rent a plane and take pictures inside of it as if you're successful. Like nobody believes it anymore. Why would you be showing this off? And it's just such this wild kind of plastic thing that we've built up as an image on the internet, as it were, of what does success look like? What does it look like to be, doing well or crushing or have a great body, all of these different things that come together of like everything feels fake. And when you're just straight up and honest with people, you kind of get taken back by it when you find somebody that just gives it to you straight. I find.
I couldn't agree more. I have been in lots of situations. So I work in like a sales kind of a role, right? So a lot of my conversations are around these are the types of services we can deliver to you. These are the outcomes that you can achieve. And it always blows people away when someone is like, "Oh, I wanna do X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'm not very good at that. Let me find someone who is." And, like, being honest about the fact that it's not our core expertise, and sure, you can absolutely hire us to do it, but you're not gonna get what you deserve if you hire us. You should go with someone else or go do something else, and that always kinda blows people away because I think we're conditioned to assume that sales is a competition, a tug of war between me, the seller, and you, the customer. And one of us is going to come out the victor. And they're always surprised when I'm like, oh, no, you know what? Not, I'm out. This isn't for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a lot of, I mean, we've all, well, most of us have purchased a car. We've been through that process and it's completely adversarial. They are trying to milk you for every dime and every percentage everybody hates it. That's why like the Tesla no dealership just order it online model just was so revolutionary in that moment and is still crushing. But like just being able to say, this is the thing I want. This is how I want it. Just send it to me. I know the price. Everything's fine. It's, yeah. In this world we've built up, and there's all these, again, influencers, there's all these coaches, there's all these people out there with a message about, like, here's how you really succeed. And you go, but are you succeeding? Like you're selling a course. Is that the thing you're succeeding at? Like, did you succeed in building this business, or are you really just miming the same concept that everybody else is miming? Like, have you done the hard work? Have you really shown that you? And then, if you have, why are you selling a course for $200? Like, if you've made 100 million in your previous business, why do you need my $200? You know,
Right.
the, there's this disconnect of, and I kind of understand it. You want people to put in a token, like people need buy-in in order to fulfill their end of the bargain and that kind of thing. But there's just so much out there, and people are just so, it's a breath of fresh air when you talk to somebody and they say, I don't do that, or I can't do that, or I know somebody else that does that better, or here's what I have to offer. This is exactly what we do. And that's it. That's what we do. If you're not looking for that thing, then it's okay. I'm happy to chat with you. Let's talk about your needs and maybe I have some insight for you, but I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm not the guy you need today.
And I think too, there's almost this like attitude of if I'm not shouting about my success, if people don't know that I'm successful, then, how can they possibly know that other people like me? So therefore they should buy from me too, right? And you see a lot of those people. I don't know if you're on LinkedIn, but I am on LinkedIn. And I feel like every third scroll is someone trying to be a like performative is the wrong word, but basically, like, they're really trying hard to be a thought leader. You can tell that they're trying hard to
Mhm.
have thoughts that people wanna respond to. And then occasionally you can start to see where, okay, this is what everybody's writing about. And you start to see this circle of people where one person writes about a topic and then everyone jumps on that topic to have the same thing. And it's almost like this circular process of we're all going to talk about the same thing, even though none of us really have opinions on that. Or I didn't have an opinion on it until I saw someone else talk about it and get a lot of engagement. So therefore, I will copy them so I can coattails on their audience.
Yeah, and I think you see that everywhere these days. Like everybody's looking for that viral point that's going to get them the inflection, right? You're going to get the hockey stick of interaction of comments or views or whatever it is you're looking for. And I don't think that's just in business. I mean, we're talking about entrepreneurship and business here, but you see it everywhere. You see it a lot of it in like political ideology. You see it a lot of it in like just all the modern thought process, right? If something catches a little bit for somebody, suddenly 100 other people are saying the same sort of message just a little bit differently, and they're all looking for that tweak that's going to grab them the virality there. Like it wasn't necessarily your thought or opinion in the first place. You just decided you needed to have an opinion now. And yeah, I don't know. You go down this road of the world is so full of so many voices. Like we've taken this, a massive photo of free speech. Of course, we're both Americans. We're both here for this whole thing, but like we've all taken it to just this extreme edge of we have to have a voice at all times. And I don't know that that's correct. I don't know that that's true. I definitely don't have a good opinion on a lot of topics, and I simply don't talk about them.
Totally fair. I wonder, and this is maybe, gonna ask you to talk on opinion. Maybe you don't have an opinion. I'm gonna actually ask you to do exactly what you just said you don't do. Um, But do you think that this is like, was it always this way? We were always jockeying for kind of that influence and being the person in the room, and now it's more visible that we have access to basically unlimited opportunities to shout into the void? Or is it a symptom of we're looking around and, the grass is always greener, and because of social media, we're starting to develop this feeling of if I'm not being heard and seen, then I am invisible, and if I'm invisible, I'm not gonna be successful.
It's a good question. My immediate answer is I have no idea. I would say that these things are leveraging on human behavior. I would say that we as humans haven't really changed. We haven't had enough time to really change. I think people are basically the same that we've always been. We just have access to a thing that is completely new to us. Like I think if you go back and look at, old media, um, or the town square, like who was shouting and the whole crowd would become rancorous and shouting, like the same kind of thing happened. We just didn't have the ability to put our thoughts and opinions into such a wide audience at any given moment all the time. And I think it just leverages into a thing that already existed. And like there's all these thoughts opinions about social media companies and kind of the damage that they're doing to society because they've algorithmically locked into these things, right? They found these interaction points and said people interact more when we push these narratives in front of everybody. People act more when we take these things that are somewhat viral and we boost them, and then we get everybody else to start being viral and boost them, right? So they've made echo chambers that are conducive to their own business models because like they want interaction, they want views, they want monthly active users, they want time on platform. So as they lever into human behavior of who's the loudest, who's the noisiest, who's getting the attention. I think we all want attention, right? I mean, I want attention from my spouse, right? I
Yeah.
want her to listen to my opinion. I want her to think that I'm have a value or something, some value to add, I should say. And you just add that to the wider world. I don't know if I answered your question well. The answer is I don't know, but I tried.
I love it. I love the authenticity of giving us what you think, but without wrapping it in having the all-knowing answer, right? Because that's really what we're talking about here is honesty as a business strategy, right? Not
Yep.
just a personal core value, but coming to the table, being honest with our customers, and especially because of the world that we live in where there's so much, like, smoke and mirrors a little bit and the ability to fake things on the internet. I think a lot of people, to your original hot take, are thirsty for something that's real and not having to worry about being bamboozled into something that doesn't actually align with what they're looking to do.
Yeah. And to expand on that a little, I don't think it's just customers. I think it's ourselves. I think it's our partners. I think it's our employees, our contractors, our talent. Everybody in our circle of influence in business is looking for that same thing. I mean, but I know a lot of you and a lot of your listeners are going to know the same thing where you go to meetings, you go to conferences, and you meet somebody who is supposed to be bigger than you, doing a better job at the thing, and you meet them and you're sort of disillusioned after the fact and go, oh, right. That was kind of more ego and pomp than it was reality. It was more messaging than it was, or you've worked at a place and you thought this is going to be amazing. I'm going to come in here and they have everything together and they know what they're doing. And this is going to be I'm going to fit in and I'm going to hit the ground running and I'm going to build out this next level of system. And you get there and you go, this entire place is a mess. Like
Mhm.
the outside veneer was completely different than the actual operation. And that's so normal and that's so just an ongoing part of running a business. Like everything's a mess. Like, we're striving our best to do our best and to make organizations better and to make systems better. But at the end of the day, you come in and you look around and you go, there's 15 messes that I don't have time to clean up today. I know they're there. I know they're operational and they work. They could be better. How do I get to make them better? Well, I have to bring somebody in. I have to get help. I have to do all these additional steps and I have to invest capital and I have to work towards my business being as good as possible, but yeah, I think people are hiding their messes a lot.
1,000%. As I frantically clean because we have an unexpected babysitter coming tonight that I'm like, "Oh, crap, now I have to clean up my house and make sure, like, it doesn't look as terrible as it normally does." I mentioned at the beginning that you and I are kind of in what I usually say is violent agreement around, this concept of honesty, and one of the words that I hear a lot on this show is about the importance of authenticity and people really looking for authenticity. So authenticity, honesty, all of that kind of the same thing, and it's a recurring trend, and you see people talking about it. So
Mhm.
if we are all thirsty for this, why is it not happening?
I think it is. I mean, this conversation right here is happening. I've had a similar conversation with many people. I think it's easy to fall into the trap of the viral trend. Like these social media platforms have made it really easy to do the thing that gets the most impressions and the most views. And a lot of times that thing is not necessarily the best course of action. Like you were saying, you see a lot of thought leaders kind of it's the same thought. You're not leading when you're giving the same thought. You're just reproducing, and it's really easy to do that. And it's really easy to fall into that. And I'm not saying I'm immune to it. We do similar things in our marketing strategies, right? You're constantly looking at like what's working for the competitor. How do I do something similar? You always want to be, at the top of the game. In order to be at the top of the game, you got to see what the other players are doing up there. Um,
Yeah.
but I think it's an ongoing conversation. I think it's well known. I think it's a thing that everybody's kind of striving for. But there's just so much of this. We're inundated with the opposite message that people aren't sure. It's hard to tell when something is actually authentic sometimes
Yeah.
because it's been pushed so far down at this point. You're like, are you really on a jet or are you on a stage and just taking pictures inside of it? And if you are on
Yeah.
the jet, why are you taking pictures and posting them on Instagram? Don't you have something better to do right now?
Right, for sure. Considering I would love to hear your perspective too, because a lot of the people that come on the show and that listen to the show work at global companies. And with your experience working with essentially non-American talent, do you think there's a cultural aspect to this and our goals around authenticity? And I'll give an example. Some of my clients are from the UK. And I always know that they are never going to be aggressive in telling me they don't want something or I'm not on the right track. They're going to just kind of like quietly tell me I did a good job and then, go somewhere else and fix it. So, is there any impact to what the word authenticity and honesty means when you're working across global lines?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, culture plays a big part of it, and the culture that we've developed. Americans are very entrepreneurial. We're risk takers. There's a reason that we're so successful. We're very good at the things that we do, and we're very innovative. And yeah, I think the risk taking is a major part of why we're so successful as a culture, really, as a business culture and as a culture itself. Um, so as you look at other cultures, you got to realize like what is built into that culture. You mentioned England and the UK. It's a much more like, I mean, it doesn't always sound like it from their usage of words, but they're much more polite, much more like, standoffish kind of culture, right? They're not going to
Yes.
tell you
That
directly to
stiff
your
upper
face.
lip for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that exactly. So as you go to other places, you kind of get a feeling for that. So we do Latin American talent specifically. We work with all people from Latin America, but I have a lot of people that come to me, very biased, of course. I have a lot of people that come to me and they're going away from their Asian talent. They're Philippine, they're Indian, or Asian in other places. And part of it is time zone, of course. There's a difference in when people are working. But there's this whole idea of like, you get a lot of people that are essentially yes men from those parts of the world, that they're here to tell you that yes, I can do that, or yes, we can do that. And they're not pushing back, and they're not being honest with you. And they're being honest. I'm not saying this trying to say they're dishonest, but it's
Right.
part of that cultural working relationship between American companies and Philippine or Indian companies, where they're here to tell you that they can do the thing that they believe that, they're gonna accomplish that, even if they're not able to actually do that, or even if they're
Right.
not competent enough to actually do that, and somebody else needs to do it.
Right. There's
And
never my experience with, the very talented people that I've worked with from Asia is that they would rather pull an all-nighter and work several days in a row than tell you that they can't do something because it's like they don't wanna disappoint you, so therefore they're gonna make it happen, right? Even if it's not in everyone's best interest to go forward.
yeah, exactly. So you need to kind of understand that going in, right? And again, I'm super biased because I do Latin American services, right? So most of the people that I talk to that are moving out of Asia are the ones that have a problem with their talent and their setup in the first place. I'm not talking to the people that are super happy with all their Philippine talent, because why would they call me? Um,
Right.
but when you get to Latin America, you have a different kind of thing. It's much more of an honest culture. They're much more, able to push back. They're much happier to tell you, I don't know how to do that. That's not my role. Let's figure out a different way to do this. It's just different cultural concepts, I think, and you have to understand that. But I don't think anybody, I don't think most cultures have a dishonesty as a foundation. I think everybody wants to be authentic and honest. I think
Yeah.
we just get pushed into the manner of, everything we've been talking about here, of like, social media has this funnel where it's like, oh, I'm on a jet and I'm doing cool stuff. And you're like, no, you're not. Stop doing that. You know,
Right.
like there's something there that's not part of reality, because you would never do that to your friend group. You would never take them to a fake stage jet and be like, we're on a jet, because everybody would look around and be like, so what, dude? It doesn't
Right.
go anywhere,
Right.
like,
Unless this thing actually flies me to Bora Bora, I don't want it.
right. So, there's this disconnect of what we're talking about, where it's like, everybody wants to be honest and authentic. And when we're in person, when we're with our people, when we're with people we're comfortable with, we're almost always that way. I mean, there's people that aren't, of course, but and there's just this divide of like, you need to appear successful. I'm sorry, I'm a bit off topic at this point.
No, I
I'm
love it.
back
I
into
love
the
it.
old, but you need to appear successful in order to, it's the fake it till you make it kind of mindset. Like,
I
that
wrote
works
that in
really
my
well.
note. Yeah.
Yeah, it works really well when you need to build something and you have something that's not, structurally important. Don't fake it till you make it if you're building a bird. But when you're building a marketing agency, like, you can get this first steps done by faking it a little bit, as long as you're good at what you're doing, you know. But yeah, we've extended that, I think, too far.
I couldn't agree more, truly. And it is hard, right? Because success begets success, right?
Mm,
And it when I was first getting started in building my business, I mean, at the beginning, you're desperate for any dollar. Like, I remember
yeah,
taking projects that I was like, I have no business doing this, but I'm gonna say yes and figure it out later. Right. And you
mhm,
start to learn over time that those projects end up being your worst nightmare because you had no business doing those things.
right.
I'll say 9 times out of 10, they're your worst nightmare. Every once in a while you find something you're like, oh, actually, I am pretty good at this. I'm surprising even myself here. So, how do we go from that fake it till you make it, desperate for any dollar to that consultative approach to selling? Like, is it as simple as just being honest with your prospects? And how do you balance the need for cash, which is what we're all here to do for business, and doing what's in the best interest of you and the customer?
Ugh, that's a good question. It can be a little bit hard, I think, because I've been in the same situation, right? You go, I don't really know how to do this. I know the principles, I understand the basics. You
Right.
know, I'm always very
I'm smart enough to sell it. I don't know that I'm smart enough to
yeah.
actually make it happen, right?
Yeah, I'm smart enough to sell it, and I'm probably smart enough to figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
I think a big piece of it is like, can you do it for yourself? Is kind of where I always come back to. And I do the same thing with hiring people into our organization and previous organizations. Like, can I do this myself? Do I understand this process? Can I make it work? And can I make it viable for myself, for my own business? And then can I sell it to other people? Like marketing, for example. We did a lot of marketing for ourselves. I spent a lot of money learning how to, do digital marketing on my own e-commerce businesses and then into my own service businesses, right? Doing my own marketing business because not that I was an expert, but I had enough understanding of how the system worked that I said, yeah, I could probably do this for someone else. I know how to do it
Right.
for me in my niche, in my vertical. So let's go see, what else is out there, what else I can do that for. And most of those skills translate. And sometimes they don't, and when they don't, you have to be ready to have the hard, honest conversation, which is, I'm sorry, I don't actually know how to do this very well. I
Right.
don't think I'm able to accomplish the goals that we set out. And, either a, I'll do it for free until I figure it out, or B, here's your money back. And I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
having the hard conversation is a big part of the honesty and integrity thing that we've been talking about. It's really easy to want to avoid that conversation. I mean, just saying for me, I'm not saying like, oh,
Oh my
I just
God.
run
Yeah.
into them. No, the hard conversation. You're like, I could do anything else right now,
Yeah. I would
you know?
rather have a root canal than admit that I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. So,
Yeah. Especially if you've
considering
already taken money for it.
right? Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
And especially if you're the sole person who's responsible for other people's livelihoods, right? And other
Mhm.
people's incomes. Like that's the part that I don't think anyone who's never run a business does not necessarily understand the angst and emotion of digging through a spreadsheet and trying to figure out how you're gonna make sure that everybody gets paid and that you also get enough to like cover your expenses. And it is a lot of work. It's very stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you have to trim down when it comes time to be the good capital manager, and it's rough, especially,
I hate it.
you like everybody on your team. They're on your team for a reason, and it is a terrible day.
Considering the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else should we be paying attention to?
I mean, there's so many. Like, eh, well, Charlie Munger, he's dead now, so a little bit hard to a little bit hard to continuously pay attention to him. But man, if you read like Good Charlie's Almanac, or I
Mhm.
think that's the name. That's it's so fantastic. It's just speeches by him. Just an amazing human to listen to and get ideas from. Just was in the investment world next to Warren Buffett for decades, so it's decades and decades. Warren Buffett's just retiring now, and he's almost 100. Charlie Munger was his right hand man since they were, in their 30s or something. Just absolutely incredible thought process of that person. And it was great. There's always big names like Stephen Bartlett, who has the Diary of a CEO podcast, who has
Yeah,
really fantastic guests on. He just had James Clear from the Atomic Habits, who is another person who's, blew up for a good reason, right?
right.
He has an incredible message. He has great things to say. And the latest episode with him was fantastic. Of course, it's all about, setting habits and setting strategy, like understanding what your goals are, but your goals aren't the thing. The daily work is the thing. Yeah. There's a book called Obvious Atoms from like 1915. That's an amazing book about this guy that I forget the name of the author, but it's just the story of coming into marketing, coming into advertising, a guy whose name becomes Obvious Adams because he's constantly looking for the obvious thing. And it's just shocking to everybody around him when he finds the thing that's obvious, and it works every time. Like, oh, there's this delicious cake. Okay, well, let's give out free samples at the grocery. And they're like, we were worrying about billboards and messaging and all this stuff. And he's like, just give it to
Right.
the customer. It's great. They're going to buy more of it. Um, yeah, sure. I don't
And
know if
if
I have one
someone
singular example.
no, I love it, I love it. I'm always looking for new books to add to my to be read list and new, podcasts to follow, so I thank you for that list, and there's, some old school classics that you're mentioning there, so I'm gonna have to go check those out as well. If someone is really connecting with you, they wanna learn more, where can they find you online?
Our website, wowremoteteams.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, of course. Chris Brown is a great search on LinkedIn. I'm sure you're going to find me first thing, no problem. If you look up Wow Road Teams, you'll find a list of us, and I'll probably be one of the top one or two in there. And yeah, generally our website, and our website has all our contact info, phone number, and stuff. Call us.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the Growth Signal. And I can't wait to be thinking more about how we be more authentic in 2026.
Yeah, it was great being here. Thank you for having me on.